Come to you, Mheshimiwa Malwa, the IEBC. You are opposed to the October 17th date that has been set for the presidential election rerun, and you want an overhaul of the IEBC. If you can just explain to us, what does that mean? And can that be achieved in 39 days' time?
First of all, I want to confirm that NASA, at no given time, has demanded that the commissioners should go. We understand the Constitution very well, and we know what involves, as per Article 251 of the Constitution, in terms of removal of the commissioners. But the issue is this. As per the ruling of the Supreme Court, and they were directed to repeat the elections within 60 days with strict adherence to the Constitution and the relevant statutes.
Right.
In this case, we are looking at the Elections Act. Whatever we had agreed. Remember, I want to give you a genesis, if you give me a bit of more time. The Elections Act, the act had been amended several times. The first incident, we had an inter-party issues where it was chaired by Orengo and Kiraitu. All that was agreed. But later on, Jubilee brought in a lot of amendments to dilute what had been agreed. The famous Section 44B of the Elections Act, where they brought in the issue of the complementary aspect. The critical issues we are raising here is this. We were told the 4Gs, 3Gs are not all over. But we've seen that IBC, in terms of preparedness, they went and looked for phones using the satellite. These satellite phones were not even used. So the question is, why were they not used? Was this done in a design, in a deliberate manner, that this election is going to be a flop? Or to declare, by the way, I want to say this, if I'm told I'm a computer-generated leader, I'm ready to resign and go back to the people. I want to make that very clear. And when you go to community constituency, I want by a major landslide. But if I'm told we have leaders who are computer-generated, it is very shameful. This is robbery with violence.
Many people, Mheshimiwa, are accusing you of doublespeak when you are a member of parliament via the IEBC process, and you're still vilifying the IEBC.
No, the issue is this. We're not saying, it depends. You know, maybe these malpractices were done selectively. And I'm saying this because when I look at Article 86 of the Constitution, it is very clear that IEBC shall put mechanisms in place to eliminate all the electoral malpractices. So whatever we are talking about is about malpractices. And in the Elections Act, Elections Offences Act that we pass in Parliament, any officer of IEBC who is responsible for any negligence or whatever the case, he must be held responsible. From the court ruling of the Supreme Court, it is clear that the person in charge of ICT, something went wrong somewhere, he must be answerable. We have a lot of loopholes. And for us as NASA, we don't want to go back again and play with the same hyenas that are there. So for Jubilee to agree with IBC on the 17th day of elections, we want to know, have they corrected the loopholes that have been detected? Unless it's been confirmed to us, and from the memos that are flying all over, it shows that IBC is a divided house. The loopholes have not been removed. So until when they are removed is when we'll be willing to go back for the presidential elections.
Mr. Senator, from where you sit, what should happen to the electoral body? They are already preparing for that October 17th presidential election repeat. What should happen vis-a-vis what NASA are demanding?
I think, for me, I would want to predicate the changes within the IEBC not from the demands by whichever side of the political divide. Because, as you say, then, therefore, you are questioning the loyalty of these members. And you'll have this list versus that list. And then you'll also look at which competence then do you have within the commission. It would have been very good if the Supreme Court, and that's why I say I disagree with the ruling, would have given a summary, just like Jackton Ojwang did, particularly, not even Joking Dongo for me, of what were the areas. So that even as we prepare because of the short time, then IBC would be focusing on those particular judicial observations, I would want to say. So the considered judgment, and I hope that the Supreme Court judges are not going for a fishing expedition, will help us. I mean, if you count from the date of the ruling, 21 days to be very close to the election, that they would actually be able to be amenable, they would be corrected, so that then we are able to be sure that by the time we do the 17th October date, then we have been able to answer to the questions that have arisen. However, I think it's not just a question of fixing things technically. There must be something we are calling the team spirit of the IEBC. And I don't think it profits anyone, whether you are Jubilee, whether you are NASA, whether you are Kuru Aukot or Abdul Badida or Shakalaka Kwajirongo, to have a commission that is divided. I think Johan Kriegler told us in 2007 that it is important to have a commission at least 2 years before elections.
Yes.
Wafula Chebukati came to that position 7 months of the election. Of course, Ezra Chiloba had been duly, appointed after Oswago and others left. And when we started these demonstrations, that is where the rain started beating us.
All right.
Because by the time we were doing all of these, chasing out people, giving them send-off packages, then we set IEBC, if you like, on the kind of crisis that we are finding ourselves into. Right. And I think we must also be honest with each other, that in political constitutions, we must not be seen to be thriving in crisis, because Kenya is greater than any of us and our political ambitions.
All right. Well, Akili, how does the IEBC deal with this situation? It has 39 days to conduct that election.
I actually am tempted, Ben, to ask how the IEBC, and no one is addressing that, how did the IEBC arrive at the date of 17th? Yes. That's one. My brother here said that Kriegler, of course, recommended that we should have a longer period, of course, of 2 years before the elections for commissioners. Why could we not then have at least the 60 or 59 days authorized by the court as ordered? I mean, this is not being addressed. There is, of course, the issue of there is an exam and we will interfere with the children and all that. But look at it this way. Elections will come and then they will never be there until another 5 years. That is a very important issue for the nation. So how did we arrive at this 17th? And then now we rush the programs and say, oh, now we don't have time. We don't want, oh, no, don't tell us like that. Why did we put ourselves in that kind of fix? I don't understand it.
All right.
So therefore, to me...
So those 2 weeks would make a really big difference from where you sit.
Of course, even a week. The IBC should have called the political parties together, the stakeholders, discuss with them, tell them, what I want to do is, I want to fix the date, at least like 2 weeks before the end of the 60 days.
Right.
And then the parties would have said, no, we don't want that. We want this. Why do leaders in Kenya actually force it down the throat of citizens? This is the issue. It's not about Raila Odinga or the president. It's about, you just come from somewhere and you say, hey, you guys, I want the elections to be held on 17th. And you just want us to swallow that. Really, that is not fair to the citizens.
Some pundits have accused NASA of erecting a lot of obstacles on IBC's way, and ultimately nothing will happen, and then force a coalition government. What do you say to that?
That is totally wrong. In any case, NASA wants its full loaf. We don't want to have a half loaf or a slice. That is that's the wishful thinking of Jubilee. And I want to say this. It is Jubilee that has been frustrating all the efforts. Look at the amendments of the Elections Act. And anytime you amend the law, IBC is required to develop regulations. So as you amend, they amend their regulations in order to operationalize that statute. In this context, look at the issue of KPMG. NASA has been on the front line when this was agreed that they must do voter auditing. Because in 2013, we remember the voter list was not very clear. We had the green book, the black book, the white book, and this was a loophole in terms of providing room for corruption. So for us to have gone to the elections, first and foremost, we wanted a clear voter register. The firm that was given this work, it was agreed that this should be an international firm which has expertise when it comes to matters of voter registration. Which company was awarded? It's KPMG. Yes, it has that international appeal. But what is it the expertise in? They have expertise in auditing of financial books. They don't have any experience when it comes to voter auditing. So when we raise that genuine issue, that was not raising an obstacle. It was actually being genuine.
All right.
When it comes to the issue of printing, we had issues with this Algarer whatever company. How do you print Form 34s without these security features that are supposed to be there? How do you print these papers and yet they are not serialized? Serialization helps in terms of accountability. How do you rush again? You announce the elections are going to be on 17th. What measures have you put in place that these Form 34Bs and 34As, to ensure they are going to be serialized, to ensure the security features are going to be there, and more importantly, to know which farm, how are you going to outsource the farm that is going to print.
All right, fair point.
Before you finish, Ben, you know you are cutting me short. In terms of inclusiveness, what IBC should have done, should have called all the stakeholders together. And in this case, we are looking at both sides of NASA and Jubilee to agree. The most important thing is to have free and fair elections. They never did that. Now it's a crisis. You are seeing them trying to call us together, and you are seeing things falling apart in the Secretariat. This is not acceptable
Mr. Senator,
at all.
do you agree with the issues that have been raised by NASA now and even during the presidential election petition? And do you think there's enough time between now and October 17th for IBC to iron out those issues and prepare adequately?
I think the challenges that we are seeing are really around the issue of electronic aspect, in terms of even transmission, and that is a new area. I think there were concerns in 2013, and you can see the Maina Kai case is actually the one that is really the fulcrum of this whole petition by ODM. And I think I want to say that you create roadblocks, you create anarchy, Ben, you make sure that you go to the streets and demand a new IEBC, then you make sure that IEBC does not perform its work. If it seems to, you go ahead and criticize even when there are rumors, even when questions are raised before they are answered. You come on national television and you talk like they have gospel truths, because ideally you want some consultation, you want some nusumkate, you want the situation of President, Prime Minister. You want to say one side of the country is left, so we divide this country, just like those two women in the Bible, whose one was dead, and then they wanted to split one baby. That's the situation we are finding ourselves into. And this is very predictable. In fact, rumors are running around that NASA, the idea is basically to create anarchy. The idea is to make sure that nothing goes. The idea is to make sure that, you try to imagine, you're doing Kenyans, that your interest is to have a perfect process. And there's no perfect process anyway. But in the actual sense, you want to ensure that you engineer, that the 60 days are over. That is why, for example, ODM is demanding that election should be very close to the final day, so that there is no room for any form of extension. This is very well engineered. Right. That is why they are telling us that whatever cannot happen now, and we've done an election, we are waiting for the Supreme Court ruling. All right. Let me make a point. So that then, after that, they say, oh, now this has not happened. Can we quickly come together and around the table? You take this, take that. No. That is the position. Very wrong. And let me tell you very clearly, Kenyans would want to vote. And I believe that even now, there is an opportunity to give each and every citizen a right to vote, so that we have a clear winner and a clear loser, and the country moves forward. That is the desire of Kenyans.
Ben, I think this is very unfortunate if you allow this kind of sentiments. And, everyone will think that we exactly are ascribing to these views. But my only comment, just 2 seconds, is this. This has been the rhetoric, this has been the narrative. What Justice Maraga said on 1st of September is the greatness of a nation is when you are a stickler to the rule of law.
And
in brief, to the rule of law, and follow the Constitution. If you do that, there will be no problem with the 17th and no problem with how
Let me get your final thoughts, gentlemen, very quickly because of time. I'll ask you one question. Do you think, let me start with you, Mr. Mashmamala, in less than 40 seconds only. Do you think the ruling that was made by the Supreme Court and these developments we are seeing from the IEBC, does this affect the other elections apart from the presidential poll, from where you sit?
Absolutely, and that's why you are seeing many petitions going on. So really, we are handling the presidential because it's outlined in the Constitution. It must be filed within 7 days, and within 14 days, it must have been dispensed. That's why you are seeing the governor, MCA, everything is going to court. So obviously, it has a bearing, because if the process was fraudulent, obviously, there are many outputs of the products which are fraudulent. So obviously, there's a high positive correlation between all the elections, because it's the same, it is the same IBC. And in this case, Ben, for us to go ahead and have these elections on 17th, the IBC must assure Kenyans and tell us what measures have they put in place to eliminate the loopholes that were there. We don't want to go back to the elections and again go back to court. So the level of preparedness is what we are trying to question. We are not saying we want to go towards the end so that we go have a shared Nusumukati. As a matter of fact, we don't have a shared Nusumukati with the Jubilee government. We want to have a full Mukate for the benefits of Kenyans.
Mr. Senator, what do you think is the impact of all what's happening? Does this mean the whole general election was a sham?
I think, you know, when you have a team that is geared towards a certain goal, Ben, when they have done their job, they demobilize. I mean, even us who are running for office, after that, you demobilize because people have to move on with their lives. Now, unfortunately, IEBC is finding itself in a situation where they are supposed to demobilize. They were working under very strenuous circumstances with very limited time. But instead of demobilizing now, and that's why you can see maybe Chiloba is congratulating people because of the stress they had to go through, they are supposed to repeat the same exercise, you see? So that is where the problem is. And I really would want to call upon every IEBC staffer across the country who may be watching this program, put this country first. We politicians will politic, you know, we will say this and that, but you owe it to this country to have a free, fair and credible process that produces winners that will not be challenged so that this country can move forward. That is what I want to call upon.
Thank you. Bwana Wakili, your final thoughts.
I think every case normally is looked at its own merit. I think that all petitioners will have to prove what documentation they have, what cogent evidence they have, which actually can convince a judge. And remember, judges have different philosophies and theories, and therefore it's not everybody who would think exactly the same way the Supreme Court judges have thought. By the way, it's important that you get the right.
Thank you. Before we wind up, we have some development of the story that we did give you. That was the statement that we did tell you was from 5 of the commissioners of IEBC that was tweeted out just minutes ago by the official verified Twitter account of the IEBC. But it was not. It was signed by 5 commissioners, but it does not have an IEBC letterhead, and we have contacted one of the commissioners, that is Ambassador Paul Kurgat, who has disowned that particular statement that was tweeted out by the verified official Twitter account of the IEBC, and he says, and I quote, "This is to kindly inform you that I was not consulted or briefed on the statement attributed to IEBC commissioners and sent to newsrooms this evening. I encourage my colleagues to make use of our internal mechanisms and opportunities. I had a fruitful discussions this evening with Bishop Alfred Rotich at Waumini House." That is, of course, the commissioner giving an alibi, during which the statement was released, signed by Commissioner Ambassador Paul Kurgat, disowning that statement, which did not have the official IEBC logo, but was tweeted out by the official verified Twitter account of the IEBC. Thank you, gentlemen. That's where we leave it because of time. Thank you so much for joining me. Nominated Senator Isaac Mwaura, lawyer Ishmael Nyaribo, and Member of Parliament for Kiminini, Chris Omalo, for joining us tonight and putting some perspective on this issue. Developing story, we are keeping an eye on. A lot of pressure on the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Rifts seemingly coming up in that in the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Only 39 days to go before that October 17th presidential election rerun. That's why we leave it on Kivumbi2017. Join us every night, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. From Monday to Thursday as we discuss these governance and political issues. I'm Ben Kitili. See you at the top of the hour.